Oak, Broom, and Meadowsweet, a book of Blodeuwedd. I brought him up in the morning, gagged on him a little, slagged him sideways out my bill, all his twinkle-eyed metabolism compressed into a wet pellet of skin, bone, and a choke-load of fur. I had staked him out at sunset, set a cold-eyed lookout over his latrine, but for hours he did not emerge. You think I use my eyes mainly, but after the change my ears grew lopsided tufts of down so I could judge his distance in an instant. I hear rustlings under twigs and leaves at a swoop's distance. I killed this one because he didn't lift his tail. It trailed amongst the willow leaves, and that did for him. I was well pleased with this little brutal accomplishment. He was dead the instant I hit him. His back snapped beneath the skin. I did that for him with my talon on the woodland floor, ate him whole, and now in one perfect parcel, with his eye socket staring out, I return him to earth, puke him back into the savage cycle of rebirth, the whole of his once desperate little skeleton compacted, sucked of all sustenance. I must grow accustomed to this new and strange, nauseous perfection. My bill, that was once a mouth, that was once a flower, spat him out. They don't understand, Blodeuwedd. They've got you the wrong way around. Go back. Go back to the beginning. Go. I awoke one day, roused from the ancient faint of non-existence, men's voices dawning on me. Wake! I was coalescing out of flowers, my veins made out of tendrils, my lungs frothing out of anthers, my guts xylem, my lymph phloem, my every orifice lined with petals, my breasts coagulated out of nectar, because men made me for a man, and I must, even in my somnolence, be the best endowed maiden ever. Unconscious, I must have met their expectations best. Wake, wake, wake. Did I really want to enter, out of my silence, this world of noise? No, I thought, and slipped back under, hovered in the limbo between flesh and flowers, unwilling, reluctant. Wake, wake, wake. They coax my sap to become breath, conjure pulp into a heart, mould the suppleness of limbs. I wake. They despise me, these magpies. If only one would come within my reach, I'd string him up by his own guts as a warning to the others. But at the least faint of brazenness, they become circumspect, leave the heckling to their fellows. I'd love to build a fortress out of leaves where I could sleep without them pecking out my eyes. Hide, Blodeuwedd, among birches, their blemished parchment freckled like your breast, your folded wings like autumn foliage, yellow ochre, flecked with rust. Hide, Blodeuwedd, amid branches. Find interstices between the twigs. Turn your head to gaze backwards, lethal flower for a face, hated by all other birds. My third eyelids were made out of leaf epidermis, but I never let men see them when I was in my human form. In those first days, I'd walk off to the woods, waist deep in meadowsweet, close them and stare through membrane at shadows of trees in sunlight. But you get ahead of yourself again. Blodeuwedd, go back, go back, go back. I had scarcely taken my first breath before they named me, form of flowers opening into sentience, those men of magic, brushing waste pollen from their tunics, waving wands and bristling at their beards. The first expression I ever read in a human face was that sideways glance of Gwydion's which seemed to say, "Will you tell her, or shall I?" And Maths shrugging, "I hardly expected this to work." Hardly. They hardly even helped me to stand or offered me a cloak to cover my nakedness when he walked into the glade, that all-too-perfect youth, and Gwydion was saying, "Blodeuwedd, here's your husband." I wanted then to clench the claws I did not have. The first evening after my second transformation, I spent a long time considering talons. 3 toes forward, 1 backward, 4 vicious black grappling hooks, engines for a siege. 1 toe reversible for rapid grasping. The end digit of each padded underneath, the skin scaly, pierced by little quills like white hairs. 1 nail serrated for combing my face. The muscles taut as springs, the legs feathered. I lifted one toward the rising moon, hooked a claw about its crescent and made as if to grip it, but it slipped through like water. How glibly these talons kill. I could mangle a man's hand in an instant, expose the tendons and sink my long nails through muscle into cartilage. I do that mostly to voles and mice. I might do it one day to Gwydion's eyes. Gwydion's eyes, staring across the table at the feast. I can read them easily. He's gloating. He regards himself an artist for creating me. He's looking at my long limbs, the fair soft curve of my upper arm, the dip in the collarbone beneath my throat, the swell of my breasts, the cascade of wheaten ringlets. He's thinking, "I made this out of oak and broom and meadowsweet. I am a genius. Clay had better be grateful, or I'll take her for myself." I want to shudder there and then back into flowers and wither, but he motions with his knife, gives the youth a lascivious look, shouts, "Prepare the tent," and the servants scurry like rodents. And I'm presented to Lleu with my cloak already half off my shoulder, my hair in a touzle the servants made, my heart audible in my own ears. And he's not uncouth, that Lleu. He makes at least a perfunctory effort to be considerate, plumps the pillow with one hand as he's unclasping the cloak and letting it fall about me. The smell of meadowsweet is still upon me. He breathes it deeply in my ringlets as though drinking a draught of mead, then throws me to the bed. From then to the end of it, Blodeuwedd is detached. She's perched on the tent rails, looking down at her body, spread-eagled with this strange white ape between her legs. And when he lunges and comes, her hands quiver in the air a moment, wondering where to put themselves, then caress his naked neck, since tenderness might be the next thing a wife is supposed to give. Body's up and gone out of the tent flaps, and Blodeuwedd looks down and she sees, I see, the spreading blood stain at the centre of the bed. The servants scurry like rodents. I have marked in my mind the position of every stone and fallen twig within my section of the hedge and field. There is not a vole or mouse whose tracks, latrines, and holes I have not reconnoitred. Their deaths are inevitable, and I at last am decider of fates. It is easiest in moonlight. I find some advantageous branch, perch and watch the puddles of whiteness between bowl shadows. When the vole emerges, I sway to ascertain her distance, wings raised in my lethal ballet. My flight is muffled as the train of a diaphanous gown on a marble staircase. I strike feet first, precise. In dark of moon or under cloud, Eyes are superfluous. I kill by hearing. My whole face is a receptor. The white petals about my eyes home in on needling squeaks and scuttles. The quills about my ears have movement. I fly straight at him, head first, to the last moment, then replace my listening face with claws. By that one squeal I know I've got him. I am his living rack and gallows. My gullet is his grave. I am the white, silent once maiden of his ending. They took such pains to make a maiden out of flowers, only so he could take my maidenhead the same day I was made. Strange, the minds of magi. The servants burn the sheets. Math and Gwydion gave my husband Cantref Dynodin at Mur Castell. Our court was held, a palatial cage for a momentary maiden nestled among mountains, where his minions murmured contentment, numbed themselves with mead, fumbled with courtesans, gave obsequious praise to Lleu the deft-handed and his once virgin, and the half-dazed retinue of lesser maidens Gwydion had made me. No bird ever gives me praise. I am the exquisite outcast, perfectly made in every way, universally maligned. There is much dignity in being so hated. These medievals call me Jewess of the glade, mobbed again by birds. This is no particular change. At Mur Castell I was equally despised. You try it for a day, being a woman perfectly proportioned, who cannot cast a glance without men quivering with longing, who cannot smile without some other woman sneering, who cannot brush her hair without a ripple of envy somewhere. Owls, flowers, and princesses have much in common when it comes to jealousy, worse still for one who also has a brain. See my perfection. My eyes are wide, their pupils like a woman's dripped with belladonna. My face is sun-white, a love-heart edged with gold. My wings outclass the king's best velvet. Feel them. But no, don't catch my breath, charnel house of rodents, fetid after pelleting. You will say, see, beauty is skin deep. Here's corruption. It didn't take much to make me practiced in deception. I was restless. He went to Caer Dathil and left me to my own devices. I crimped my hair, trimmed my nails that once were husks, lay down a while, tried a while to read, spoke idly with maidens, ascended spiral stairs of worn stone, stared out across the mountains listening, the wide silence broken by a hunter's horn, and leaning out the tower I saw them, dogs and huntsmen at their head, a lord in flight from him, a stag, branch-antlered, craze-eyed, afroth with fear, and him killing swiftly. So I sent some scullery boy scampering after him as he knelt to blood his hounds. My chieftain would be chagrined if I failed to invite you in. At my command, servants swarmed like field mice, taking his surcoat from him, unbridling his horse, bagging its nose with oats, bringing yellow refreshment poured from hollow horns, strewing the stones with meadowsweet, garnishing his oaken guest-room with flowers of the broom, laying a feast for the lord of Pen Llyn, Gronw Pebir. In front of the hearth in the open hall his wolfhounds slumping with lolling tongues, and in my best brocade of white and yellow ochre I received him, and oh, but he was gorgeous with his long black locks and his deep brown eyes that never glanced sideways, but stared straight and honest, not at my breast, but at my face. And he said, God repay your welcome, woman. Your face is like a flower. And I knew that fate had laughed again when I looked down from the tower. Now I spend my lifetime looking down. Walk under my bough, you lanky white ape, and I'll stare you out. Most of the time you're blind, All you see is dappled light through leaves on bark. Reach back for your quiver, fit an arrow to your bow, and I clack my beak, hood my wings, sway and hiss. Don't misjudge the reach of this, my talon extended, slashing at your face. And he's cupped my face in his hand like something delicate and treasured. I have drawn him to my bed like a gleam the moonlight gathered, and he sepulchred his head in my hair, his ego smothered, and I cushion him with pillows and with quills eider feathered, and everything is vibrant that once lay bleached and withered. After love-making, my ivory comb lends luxury to my grooming, and turns these tendrils ever-growing back at once to ordered tresses, not one ringlet left dishevelled, cascading like yellow satin, locks that can be idly shaken, cloaking me in their caress, combed to cast a woman's wiles about his face like waterfalls. After hunting, the white pliers of my beak turn to preening. They tweezer out the parasites, caress the secondaries and primaries, not one feather left dishevelled, rejuvenate the silent velvets so I can hear the furtive scamper cloaked in a caress of feathers, softer than a woman's wiles, albeit with hidden hooks and nails. And he doesn't want to leave. He's saying, "If only you didn't have a husband." And unlike any other married woman, I find myself replying, "I never chose to be made for him. Before I was ever human, I was already his." That's when Grono casts off his bedsheets, cursing fate, and whispers, "Ask your husband how he may be killed." And I felt the claws within unclenching. Sometimes the impact kills them. My toes react to touch and clench quicker than blinking. Often they're impaled or quickly crushed. My beak might seize them by the throat while they're still twitching. Nothing comes much easier than killing. Nothing comes easier than the asking by feigning care. In what manner, husband, might you die, the better to avoid it? And he's thankful for my solicitude, saying most glibly, "I'm grateful for your goodness, but it would be hard indeed to kill me. You'd need to take a year to make a spear to pierce me, and strike not under roof nor under sky, and neither on my feet nor on horseback could you cross me." Then how, my husband, may you die? With one foot on a bathtub by a river, sealed mighty tight against the water, and one foot on a billy goat. That way would dispatch me, and no other. My goodness, husband, what a lot of bother. Then sure you shall be safe from guile forever. I say it without flinch or flush of colour. My underside, pale as cloud, is invisible from the stubble at dusk or dawn. I'm a clawed extension of the atmosphere, drifting down, and from above my tail is marked with bars, my wing coverts peppered in striations. The apex of the food chain is not me, but the eagle, so I echo straw, ripening wheat, sun-dried grass, its haze of seed heads bristling. The wind in my feathers is the long brooms rustling. The reeds beside the river shivered in the breeze. I had caused the bath to be carried there, the field filled with likely-looking goats. I had only recently learned the animals' names. "Let a goat be brought," said Cleu, "and I'll be glad to show you how I might be killed." And then he's balancing, with foot on bath and foot on goat. There's a loud bleat of bewilderment, and Gronu leaping out from behind the hill, hurling his spear hemlock-tipped, a year long in the turning, and the strong shaft is quivering a dagger's depth in Cleu's chest, my husband teetering as he bleeds. But his neck is lengthening, and his legs are scaled and yellowing, his arms bristling into quills, eyes turning golden, mouth and teeth hooking into horn, his whole body tilting, heart and blood becoming avian. In his guts a gizzard is growing, his breastbone is keeling, his whole skeleton lightening, hollowing, behind his eyes the sclera ossify. His hand bones fuse, fold backwards, the skin erupting into feathers. All his viciousness concentrates in his claws. Gronu sees Hleu fly, spear tip lodged in the crop, clutches his ears at the eagle's screech and flees. I see the trail of blood spattered on stones beside the riverbed as long beetles climb the reeds and shrews squeak in the straw. Am I flowers? Am I woman? There's an itching in my claw. The year grows lean. Hunting's hard until the thaw, and night is long. I preyed on beetles in the straw before the frost. Their elytra filled my craw, my pellets cast full of chitin. By my claw I must glean whatever's living. Hunger gnaws. The year grows lean. Those last slow days with Gronu, I learned the little arts of seeming like a woman. I relished his lean flesh beside me, and after our passion lay an hour tracing with my mind every place our skins were touching, felt his contours against my own, his iliac crest beneath my thigh as I draped my leg about him. The sheets smelled of meadowsweet. I learned the words he whispered, how to dress without a maiden to assist me, and when we supped, learned how to sit, how to use a knife without slipping, how to wipe my lip when the grease was on it, how to kiss, how to bless, when to nod, when to blush. This thing the Gronu taught me. Call it bliss. And now I learn to hunt in daylight, flying moth-like, level with the hedge, undaunted, systematic. Between this trunk and that hold stone I scour the ground in sections, perching only for resting, my keel almost fleshless, patient with a predator's desperation. I'll starve them out, those rodents who skitter at my silhouette, hover over every hole, trace tracks through straw, catch an eye glint, spill the updraft from my wings, and fall upon him. In my clasp he bleeds a little, that eye is bulging. I lift with him, fly noiseless to the wood. A maiden comes scurrying with a message. Gwydion is coming, and maggot-breasted Hleu, all the eagle conjured out of him, ravening for revenge. We scatter. Gronu and his retinue are gone. With my flock of maidens we're heading for the mountain. We're so afraid we flee wry-necked, our faces twisted backwards, stumbling over stones. Gwydion, wand brandisher, advances, banishes my maidens to the lake. Their brocades waver underwater, faces bleaching pale, glaze-eyed, breathless. I turn to face him, hissing, swaying, and now he's conjuring again, his mouth murderous in its grim-lipped muttering. For the shame you brought on Hleu be banished from the day, except when famine bites you. For your guile and treacherous words go loathed by other birds, may even wrens and titmice long to smite you. For betraying breath and birth, ostracized by all the earth, may the flower in your face bloom and blight you. It starts with the dull ache of hunger in the dark hole of my guts. My eyes blacken with it, my face a grappling hook. Every filament of feather, thatching out of hair, bristles with it. Hunger worse than anger, more fundamental than love. Hunger whittling my form, hunger withering my breasts, deep chasm of hunger howling to be filled. I could go free through hunger, all my intelligence rolled up into hunger. I could let all hope be subordinate to hunger. Hunger eat the flower within me. Hunger, devour the woman in me. I will make an art of only hunger. And I fly off over sedges by the straight line of the birches, where the buck bursts through the bracken past the stump and standing stone, through the smooth boles of the beeches and the bare boughs of the larches, where the whelps are being born. And I seek the wombing darkness, where the elm tree drips with dankness, and the moss fills every crevice. There I find my ancient home, in the hollows seeking solace for my killing without malice, in blackness, in the comfort of the lone. From the trees I watch the ways of men, the politics of abandonment, till only air stands between the spear and Gronu. So he asks for the megalith to shield him. This is given. It is daylight. My eyes observe through lidded slits a cool haze of foliage. Tleu thrusts a core through solid bluestone, splits my lover's spine and lets him slide spasmodic on its shaft, grasping his dying umbilicus, blood-mouthed, crying, "Blodeuwedd! Blodeuwedd!" So, husband, now the mobs of birds have flown, I perch upon this long-holed menhir, and you pass by in darkness, unknowing. I follow him home, stare hateful through his window, gouge out his soul, soft as bleeding stone. Oh, Gronu, your impossible bloom and beauty is all but gone, blowing slowly like a blighted, gorgeous rose. Go back to the beginning, Blodeuwedd. Go. I was living before this oak was acorned. I was living before the deer of Minervia grew a single tine upon his antlers. I was living before the salmon of Roch had sprouted rosy scales. I was living before the black bird of Rudbaxton ever honeyed his throat. I was living before the toad of Freystrop licked the dust or tasted his own eye. I was living when this little flint was still a mountain. I was living before the eagle pierced his eggshell. I was living when the dragons were imprisoned underground. I was flowers. I was petals. I was anthers. I was pollen. I was the white briars strangling twine. I was the cream-white froth of meadowsweet spilling fragrance from the ditches. I was the pastel splash of corncockle in the barley. I was the sulphur in the broom. I was the sex smell in the hawthorn. I was the green tassels of the nettle and the oak. I was the pink smear in the petal of the chestnut. I was the primrose in the newly dappled shadows of the spring. I was woman. I was the wife of Araun deceived in the underworld. I was latent in Rhiannon's receding allure. I was the carefulness of Kikva. I was the close-lipped courage of Branwen. I was in the anger of Arian Hrod. When Peredur saw the face of his beloved in the snow where the hawk had made her kill, I was in the bloodstains. I was Olwen's trefoils growing in her trail. I was the living footstool of Math ap Mathonwy. I was the girl birthed by the hand of Gwydion. I awoke with ancient words already on my tongue. I was Tleu's little kept one, with thighs white as bindweed. I was put together for his pleasure, but could not be made his lover. I am the pale presence in the hedge, in your room beside the bed. I hover at the edge of your vision. I can bind, loose, seduce with the turning of my face. I can score with my talons. I can vanish without trace. I can lift a man and shake him with my claws about his throat and treat him like a rodent. I am the screech of perfect grace. I can make a fool of any man. You conjure and you gloat. Now choose what you will give me, your awe or your derision. I am willpower. I am wisdom. I am neither flower nor woman. I am not fair nor foul. I am owl.